Welcome back, guys. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. This is Yankees Unloaded, episode 91. And today, shocker, we're talking about another Yankees loss to the Rays, which we've grown accustomed to. Probably never want to see the Rays ever again. Unfortunately, we'll see them tomorrow.
Or any team in the AL East, for that matter.
Any team in the AL East. But, you know, we figured we'd start this thing off because I think for a while, Gary, we've been kind of beating around the bush. And I think this is totally normal for anybody that's covering a team because you don't really get the full scope of everything. You just want to see how things play out. It's baseball. There's, you know, obviously some hot streaks, some cold streaks. You have guys that you just find out aren't that good at baseball anymore, you know, which we recently found out about DJ LeMahieu. But, you know, I think the reality of it, Gary, especially this game and just the last few games, it's really the glass is shattered. I feel more confident in saying this than anything else. I can be a fan of Ben Rice. I can be a fan of Austin Wells. I can hope for Verdugo and Torres and Volpe to turn it around. But the reality of the situation right now, the black and white definition of the Yankees offense, they are a two-man band, a two-man army, whatever you want to call it, the dynamic duo. It is Juan Soto and Aaron Judge and a bunch of other guys. Okay? You can love Ben Rice and think Ben Rice is going to be the first baseman in the future. I actually believe that. But you can also see the writing on the wall. Ben Rice isn't a consistent, he's hitting in the same spot as Soto and Judge every single game. Every single game, Soto and Judge are doing something to do, anything to try to get guys on base, to try to help teammates out. And you're just not getting that out of anyone else in the lineup. Volpe here and there, 2 hits today from Cabrera, needed today so badly. So that was good for him.
Volpe had somewhat of an impact in today's game. I mean, he was stealing bases, which was the positive side of moving Volpe down the lineup. Now, at the beginning of the year, he was hitting. So we said, okay, this is a speed guy. Yankees clearly don't have a ton of speed. Well, we're going to move you to the top of the lineup. Well, some people bit back on that and said, well, hold on a second. You're not going to steal in front of Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Definitely a point to be made there, and I think that that's fair. But having said that, I think if you have a guy who's producing, you want to put him ahead of those guys. He's protecting the lineup. He's going to score a ton of runs. But as time went on, Volpe stopped hitting, and now he's back at the 6 or 7 spot in the lineup. He's stealing bags. Today he did that. His glove was good today. There were some guys today outside of Volpe in our infield that were just putrid, and they're part of our supporting cast that we frankly were relying on coming into this year, and that is Gleyber Torres, Jake. We actually were discussing in our last show, you were mentioning that at least in the last 15 games, Gleyber Torres was swinging a bat where you could justify potentially, just in the short term, not on an extension basis, but to justify him being on this roster post-deadline. Today, as you mentioned to me privately, it looked like Gleyber Torres didn't want to be here. And that was like one of the first times I've ever seen it. I've seen low energy before. We've seen it from Verdugo, right? We've seen it from Gleyber Torres himself. But today was one of those days where it didn't look like he wanted to even be playing baseball for this organization. He was poor defensively. He didn't show high effort. He wasn't executing. You get bases loaded, 1 out. Very clear what is being asked to you. Put the ball in the outfield. He hits a soft flare out to left field. Nobody scores, right? He rolls into a double play, ruining another rally. It was essentially just the perfect storm to help your baseball team lose a game today.
The defensive stuff. That was the most telling. That was the most telling. I mean, you had one. Yep. I actually thought it was a good play where he realizes, hey, my feet are about to give out. I'm going to toss this to Volpe, and we're going to try to get something done with this. Okay? Because obviously the play was terrible in that he can't make the play. But realizing in that event, hey, I'm out of this play. I have no chance of getting this ball thrown in first. He flips it to Volpe. Very unorthodox play, but I thought it was actually pretty smart by him, knowing he wasn't going to be able to get the runner. Maybe Volpe could. But then you see it again. You know, another boot. You see the one that was really telling to me is when he got the cutoff. So I think it was Soto that threw it in. And the guy's already on first and everything. And when he throws it in, the ball just barely, he tries to throw it to the pitcher or whatever. It goes backwards. I don't know what was going on today with him. And again, I don't want to put too much stock into one game, but this isn't just one game. I think that's the thing, is that we are really in the end game now. Okay, and what I mean by that is where you can make excuse after excuse after excuse for a player. Like, for instance, Ben Rice is probably going to continue to get excuses. I mean, he had two strikeouts today, but he had 2 walks today. He scored a run. The reality of it is Ben Rice hasn't been up here long enough for us to be like, anything he does, we're going to hold him like the way we would hold Verdugo or Torres. Torres, I don't care what he did last year. There are people still bringing up last year's. He was the best hitter on the team, yada, yada. I don't really care. I don't care, because I've never seen a player, and maybe it's just I can't remember one, but I don't think I've ever seen a player who was going into a contract year, okay, in baseball with the potential to make hundreds of millions of dollars, right, and fall on his face as hard as Glaber has. Now, in addition to that, Verdugo, contract year, he's fallen on his face pretty damn hard. He's actually worse than Torres.
It's not close either. Verdugo's the worst player in the big leagues right now, and that is including DJ LeMahieu, because DJ LeMahieu's playing a position, right, in third base,
awful,
that defensively playing a good third base is much more important than playing a good left field, okay? That's what the situation was. We had a solid defensive third baseman and a solid defensive left fielder, okay, in DJ LeMahieu and Verdugo. Neither player was doing squat offensively. Now, Verdugo was hitting for the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, to which we all talked about the fit. The fit looked really good, but you've got to perform for us to talk about your fit. If you stop performing, and to which the Yes broadcast has mentioned, well, this is a player that you can like the fit all you want, but when you go 40 at bats in a row and you give us 3 or 4 hits, how is it that I'm going to justify that fit? This shouldn't be possible. Okay. No. We're getting nothing offensively. When Verdugo comes up, it is a ground ball to second base. It is nothing else. Okay. There's nothing else. And we talk about it every single day on the broadcast, not ours, on Yes. And they talk about, I'm sure he's frustrated. I'm sure he's overthinking it. We don't care about the process here. We care about the results. I don't want to hear about what's possibly making a player not perform, whether it's a day off, whether it's we didn't allow him to continue on with a hot streak, whether it's a huge series in Boston. He had such a high there that now it's like the sugar rush ends. No, I don't want to make any excuses for any of these players. This is not Little League, okay? This is not that. These are professional baseball players making millions of dollars to play a game, okay? That's what this is. Now, if I put you on the field, and Aaron Boone is consistently putting Alex Verdugo on the field, then you need to justify that. Now, is it justified to have a player who's hitting under 165 his last 30 games? I'm supposed to justify that in a championship team? Because people are watching this podcast today. We're going to have thousands of views. For a lot of the reason, Jake, is because there are thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands, that believe this Yankees team, while right now we're not a championship team, we potentially can be. And that's what we're going to talk about, which is the trade deadline. What does this team do? Are they going to be buyers? We're probably not going to be sellers. We're 2 games out of the division. But Jake, you can make the argument that somehow it's almost like we snuck our way 2 games back in the division. Maybe we don't deserve to be. And is it possibly an error trading for Juan Soto? Because I don't think so. Because when I look at the trade of Juan Soto, I think that's the Yankees saying our window is right now. We have to build for the right now. And so, having said that, Jake, my whole conclusion here, the Yankees kind of decided with trading for Juan Soto, we're a win now organization. So everything we do from this point forward should be about 2024.
Do you want to hear the sad truth of why I think they traded for Juan Soto?
The sad truth. Where do I think you're going with this? Hold on 1 second here. Why would they have traded for Juan Soto? Mm-hmm. You don't think it's them trying to expose that we're not a player away and that we're trying to reset with young players and cheaper?
I think they traded for Juan Soto because that was the best way to go out and get somebody that you knew you were going to go out and get that could sell tickets, that could be a franchise player. You felt like you had an opportunity. If you go out and you get him, you could sell him on the Bronx even more, give yourself kind of I would say an advantage when contract, discussions come. I think it was less to do about their roster and what he brought to it and more about just who he is. I think all it was acquiring the best player available. And I think he was a better player than Ohtani because Ohtani can't pitch. So at this point in time, to me, Juan Soto was the best player available, especially when you include the youth. So the fact that they were able to get a 26 or 25-year-old Juan Soto for what they got was to me like a no-brainer. I don't look at that as like, yeah, they did that because they're a Juan Soto away. I look at that like Brian Cashman needs to do those things in order to keep himself like not getting ganged up on by the fan base, not being called out every which way.
Is he not already called out? Because I do feel like our audience is calling this out. Like looking at this roster, you can call them out right now. You can just say, well, you built a team that looks a lot like the 2022 Los Angeles Angels. You built a team with two all-time great future Hall of Fame baseball players. Juan Soto and Aaron Judge will be in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
But looking at the rest of the offense, not the pitching, I don't give a rip about that. We always pitch well. We've done it since 2014. What is around Juan Soto and Aaron Judge? And you'd be hard-pressed to find talent, whether it be from our organization, whether it be traded for.
It's a bunch of you want this to be the case, but it's not actually the case. Like you wanted Anthony Volpe to take the next step, be the next Gunnar Henderson and all that. It didn't end up happening. Now, could Volpe still turn himself into a quality hitter? Absolutely. He's in year 2, but the problem is maybe that speaks more volumes to how the makeup of this roster was. The idea that you were basically going in like saying, the guys that you're basically riding all of your bets on with Soto and Judge, that like the next guys after that are injury prone Giancarlo Stanton, who even the general manager come out and said, yeah, we expect him to get hurt,
which is insane. He was right, but that's
absolutely insane.
Yeah. To say that is just so. I mean, it's accurate, but come on.
Yeah, second year Anthony Volpe coming off hitting 220.
Yeah.
And who would be the third guy? Oh, Alex Verdugo, who last year, we didn't realize this at the time because you and I were celebrating, enjoying the Alex Verdugo that we got in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Or most of the first. It wasn't even the full first half.
For the half of the first half is what we got.
But we were enjoying it. And then we find out that actually last year for the Red Sox, and I want to clear something up because the comment section is going crazy. Every time we bring up the Alex Verdugo first half, second half, they're like, well, if I go on there right now, the first half and second half, they're pretty identical. Yes, for his career. What I've meant to say, or I've said it before, and I don't know if like we've really hit it home. We're talking about last year, okay? Last year with the Red Sox, that's why they got rid of him. Because his second half performance last year was just beyond unacceptable. And guess what? That's the territory Verdugo's in now. Could even be worse. I mean, let's be honest here. I'm not a big fan of WAR, and I know you're not either. Aaron Judge has a 6.5 wins above replacement. Okay. Crazy. Juan Soto, 5.3. Anthony Volpe, 2.3. Austin Wells, 1.4. Jose Trevino, 0.8. Stanton, 0.6. Oswaldo Cabrera, 0.6. John Birdie, 0.4. Glaber, 0.4. Trent Grisham, 0.3. And you're like, okay, well, where is Alex Verdugo? Like, we made that trade and like,
where is he at, by the way?
Oh, I'm getting to him. Ben Rice, 0.2. Jahmai Jones, 0.1. Carlos Narvaez, 0. Alex Verdugo, negative 0.1.
So think of it this way, Jake. Alex Verdugo, analytically, because that's what WAR is. It's just a bullshit analytic. Okay?
Yeah. Still, though.
Now, mind you, it's just an analytic. Alex Verdugo defensively, analytically, has been not good. He has been one of the best, if not the best left fielder in the sport. Jake, what does that tell you about his bat? What does that tell you about his overall?
because that is accounting for his defense. So if he's
that
negative,
is accounting for it. Yes.
That's bad.
It's atrocious. It is so bad.
Now, what I don't understand is his baseball savant page. He's got the whiff percentage 92%, 88% on K percentage, chase rate 65th percentile, and squared up percentage is 96th. Why is his bat speed 8th percentile? Why is I think just for whatever reason, because I don't remember it being this bad ever. I mean, it's not good, man. Like, his exit velocity has gone down, I'd say.
You know what, though? That's not shocking, because you also have to remember Anthony Volpe's baseball savant page is just as anemic. It's pathetic. Okay. Outside of the glove, Volpe has nothing going for him on the baseball savant page. Okay. Expected batting average, slugging percentage, exit velo, barrel percentage. None of it is good. It's all blue. Okay. Now, these pages, they don't mean everything, but I will say this, Jake. Most players who are high output players, they hit for high average, they drive in a lot of runs. Most of the time, if you go to their baseball savant page, you see a lot of red. That's just what you usually see. Again, this isn't the holy grail, but when you turn on someone's baseball savant page and you just see ice cold all the way down outside of like whiff rate and chase rate, this is not a game. This is not cricket where your only job is to put the ball in play. No, this is baseball. Putting the ball in play is not the mission. Getting a hit is the mission. Driving in runs is the mission. We don't talk about Tony Gwynn because he's able to put the ball in play all the time. We didn't talk about Ichiro Suzuki because he never struck out and he's always putting the ball in play. No, it's that they also got a hit when the ball was in play. It's what they did when the ball was in play. And that's something that we always have to talk about, because we can read these baseball savant pages all we want, but are you getting me the results that comes with the millions of dollars that I'm paying you to do this job? If the answer is no, you're forcing me to go bring a replacement. You're forcing me to call up a prospect to replace you, because frankly, Jake, it's just money. It's just Hausheimer's money. I don't care what they pay for these players. If you pay a certain amount of money, they don't give you the output. It's not making it any better by playing those guys. It's just not. So you really can't justify Verdugo being in a contract year, and you're not, of course, but there are a lot of people who think, well, we're paying Verdugo, right? We're paying DJ LeMahieu. We have to play these guys. We've got to figure out what we got. We know what we have, don't we? It's the last 2.5 months of the season. We've got nothing from 3 guys who are highly paid in our lineup. So just my take here. Find players, regardless of what they're making, whether they're in or out of the organization, to come do this job. Because if we can get anything, Jake, from these complimentary players, I think this lineup is wildly salvageable. I really do. And I don't think the answers are inside the lineup and waiting around. I genuinely think if you even get league average out of 3 or 4 other position players on this team, it makes Judge and Soto look that much better. We're just waiting around for them to save the day. And if other guys could even come close to pulling on some rope, we would be surpassing Baltimore. All these teams have holes, and we can make ourselves look that much better.
And they're only 2 games out. So I'm not trying to say that blow up the team and everything. My thing is this, okay? There are things that you can do currently where I blame Boone, okay? First off, Alex Verdugo, his savant page for his defense has actually gone down quite a bit. So his defense has started to regress now. And what I would say is this: if his defense is starting to regress, his bat isn't worth a damn right now. He shouldn't be in the lineup. It's that simple.
This is actually the first time. I'm actually glad you pointed this out, because I've been checking his baseball savant page just week to week, not every day.
Yeah.
But his baseball savant page defensively has always been like glowing in red. And now looking at it, his range is about league average. He's at 57th percentile. His arm value, 63rd percentile. He's obviously got a lot of arm strength, but sprint speed, he's 31st percentile, right? He's blue. So he's not athletic. He's not hitting.
So do you know what you do?
Is closer to league average now.
It's very simple. You play Jahmai Jones. I don't know why they don't play Jahmai Jones. I'm not sitting here and saying he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, but what if I told you that Alex Verdugo His last 60 at-bats only has 9 hits. Okay? The last 30 at-bats of Jahmai Jones, he has 8. He has 8 hits in his last 30 at-bats. Alex Verdugo has 9
a player that we rug
60.
pull. Yeah, that's a player in Jahmai Jones that we play. He'll play well. He's hitting like 280 right now. And then we'll take him out and then put him back out there whenever we see fit, right? Whenever we want to give a guy a day. And yet he's still ready enough without making excuses to give a better output, to your point, than Alex Verdugo. That's where we are. I
don't understand. And like, I'm not saying this is the best bench the Yankees ever had. We had an entire episode kind of roasting their bench, showing you how it's not anywhere near the level of some of the other ones in the past. But I mean, Jahmai Jones has shown you there's some output there to be like, all right, let's see what this guy can do. I mean, Verdugo is killing you. He's costing you games. He's hitting into the ground just as much as LeMahieu. I mean, did you see that pitch right down the plate and he smacked it into the dirt? I'm like, how did he even manage to do that? I mean, it was like a beach ball.
Do you know how you mentioned Boone, by the way? Because you were talking about how it seems like Boone is part of the problem here. And we're not going to run away from that on this podcast. No. We are not. So I actually have a quote here for you, Jake. And I really want you to hear this. I want our audience to hear it because it is blasphemous from Aaron Boone. Okay, now this is from July 20th, just to make sure everyone has the context of what I'm saying.
Okay.
And he's talking about DJ LeMahieu. Now, this is a player who obviously is giving us nothing. He says, we got to keep running DJ out there. He's earned that. And we are roster-wise, we got to give him that opportunity to unlock his swing. Could you imagine, end quote, could you imagine ever saying that? That unlock a player based on, remember what you said about Gleyber Torres earlier, is that you don't give a rip what he did in 2021, 2022, last year.
Yeah.
Doesn't have any bearing on this year, which is 100% correct, Jake, in exactly what you said. It's perfect. Why is it that the manager of the New York Yankees thinks that based on your track record, that earns you the role this year?
I'll tell you why.
Why would that ever be the case, Jake?
I'll tell you why. Because he went that route with Stanton when no one else was willing to even go to bat for him. He was the one that stuck up for Stanton. I think he prides himself on being a player's manager. I do. Players first.
And giving everyone an opportunity to fix it.
So he already saw that work with Stanton. And I'm sure at one point when Stanton's hitting bomb after bomb behind closed doors, he's like, see, you were wrong. You were wrong. You were wrong. Like, and he had every right to do that, right? But now it's almost like, well, it worked with Stanton. Let's see if it works with DJ. And my issue is I don't need him to be a player's manager right now. I need him to find the best ways to put guys in position to succeed and to put a lineup in position to not lose 6-4 to the Rays when these are gimme games. You have to win these. The Orioles are winning these. Okay, the Red Sox are winning these. If you're not winning these, then how at the end of the day are you going to be able to compete with those teams? Especially because you still got the Phillies on your docket. You still have to play the Mets on Tuesday. That starts that Subway Series.
Houston will now be in our way.
First place. They're now in first place in their division. So
I told you, Jake.
But what did I say though? I said if they lose that game, they're done.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they 100%. And I told you they weren't. Houston wasn't losing that finale against us. They just weren't going to. But by the way, Jake, I'm really glad you brought up this point because there are going to be people who say, "Well, Boone hasn't done everything wrong," and you're absolutely right. He hasn't. But what's interesting about this situation is that if he really thinks, well, no one believed in Stan. Everyone was saying they should be DFA'd. The Yankees Unloaded said he should be DFA'd. All these different podcasts, all these different fans, they were all saying the same thing. But I believed in Giancarlo Stanton, and it paid off. Now, you could make the argument here, Jake, that if you put right now Verdugo struggling, Gleyber Torres is struggling, Giancarlo Stanton at the beginning of the year, we considered him to be a struggling person, right? Anthony Volpe clearly struggling. If you just give everyone the leash of, hey, just go play it out and go figure it out, won't one of them hit one single guy?
Absolutely. I mean, eventually MLB hitters will figure it out, especially if you have variables. You have 5 different options. So if all you need to do to win the mission, we'll call this a mission. All you need to do is win the mission is have one of those guys start hitting.
It's like playing that stupid game. Remember the game Minesweeper, where you just and like old computers,
if you just click
the
everywhere. I mean, eventually,
you're going to hit something. And so that's what I think Giancarlo Stanton is. I'm not just going to say it was pure luck that Aaron Boone predicted that Stanton would figure it out. But
Stanton could very well come back. And I think that's really the scariest part, is that we're now leaning on Giancarlo Stanton to come back. And I'm not convinced Stanton isn't going to come back, and I'm not convinced he's going to come back and be great. Like, I'm not at all. He's one of those guys, he's streaky, like the last guy you want to get hurt, have a considerable amount of time, just, I guess, what's the word I could use? Rotting on the bench. I mean, yeah,
it's like he gets cobwebs from being out, and this is understandable, right? Like, he's a rhythm player. Clearly, he
absolutely
hit better when we put him in left field. He's a guy who wants to get his feet wet, and then once they are, he's there to produce. Once his bat got going at the beginning of this year, we were like, oh, okay, well, this is the version of Giancarlo we're getting. Now we'll wait and see until he gets hurt. We all knew he was going to get hurt, and well, that's what we were waiting on. But now we're sitting here, Jake. Dominguez is probably out till early September. We don't have necessarily a real replacement for Verdugo, but I think we're now in the territory that anyone would be a better replacement. Anybody. You can put Spencer Jones out there. You can put Jahmai Jones out there. You can trade for somebody and throw Chisholm out there. Anyone would be a major upgrade.
That's the issue. When you set the bar that low, now, I mean, minor league baseball seems pointless. It seems pointless to put any prospect and keep them in AAA when that is your major league option. Like, I mean, could you imagine, like, you're doing Road to the Show?
No.
Well, you can imagine. You can imagine, because this is the stupid AI sometimes. You'll be doing Road to the Show. You'll be sitting there in AAA hitting 462. And the guy in the majors is hitting 220. And he's got no pop, and you have like 30 bombs. He's got no pop. He doesn't steal bases. His defense is regressing, and that guy will just stay in the majors. And you'll ask, you'll be like, "Hey, when am I getting called up?" And they'll be like, "We're just not, thinking about it right now." And at that point, you're like, "This isn't realistic." And it's not to say anybody's hitting 462 right now in AAA.
Well, we do in Road to the Show, though, so that it just goes to show your output doesn't matter.
It is realistic, because we're seeing there are hitters all over. So the Yankees farm system, what I've come to realize, is that it's both overrated and underrated. Because the players that are overrated are the players that are like Chase Hampton, who still is injured. He's still trying to come back. Like, overrated prospect. A lot of people have him as like, oh, he's this top tier guy. And they're using Luis Heel to kind of make themselves feel better about him. I like him. But in no way am I looking at him as like, untouchable, right? Where I think the Yankees are underrated, guys like Durbin, right? We probably won't see him the rest of the year. I think he broke his hand and he had a setback. But remember, we were talking about Durbin, 299, basically the Altuve in our farm system, right? Vivas is now hitting extremely well, playing a really good third base, second base.
Yeah, we called him up for 3 days and gave him 3 days off and sent him back packing. AAA.
Genius idea. Jeter Downs is hitting well. Benjamin Cowles is hitting well. I mean, you have guys all over the minors that are hitting well. And even still, 180 batting average, Trent Grisham is out there every single day in center field. 228 Alex Verdugo, who, I mean, that's being nice, because 228 is not really Alex Verdugo. In July, he's hitting 161. Okay. He hit 219 in June. He hit 245 in May. He hit 279 in April and 200 in March, which, I mean, barely played in March. But my point I'm making here is that the batting average is for the year. It doesn't tell you where a guy is right then and there. And that could also be used like how we used to use it a little bit to kind of give Austin Wells some praise, because like, though the last 10 or the last 15 games, whatever, just the reality of this is that this is a two-man army for the offense. It is Aaron Judge. It is Juan Soto. Now, the Yankees can either shit or get off the pot. So the reality of it is that you have two of the best hitters in the sport, and the rest of your lineup is just kind of like, and not even. I mean, some guys are just horrible to the point where is almost disrespectful. I mean, to even say that you're like, no, Verdugo is killing you. It's not that he's not helping you; he's killing you. And bases loaded opportunities. You can't have a guy grounding into a double play consistently.
Oh yeah, it happens all the time. It's not like an anomaly.
So yeah, I mean, that's killing you. Torres did it today. And I don't want to just put it all on Verdugo, because I think while he deserves a lot of, like criticism, so does Torres, so does Volpe, so does Grisham. Like the lineup but also so does Boone and Cashman, because like I mentioned, Jahmai Jones could be inserted in there over Verdugo. Even if he was hitting the same batting average as Verdugo, at least you did something. Okay. Just sitting there and not doing anything, the lineup hasn't changed that much. I think that's kind of where, Brian Cashman kind of got a lot of praise, calling a Ben Rice. I mean, you really look at it, this lineup hasn't changed much at all, Gary. I mean, these are all guys that were either on the roster at the beginning of the season or were expected to be on the roster in training camp. I mean, that's really what it is. Trent Grisham, we already knew was going to make the team. Okay, he's been on the bench.
Ben Rice wouldn't have been on the team, by the way, if Rizzo didn't get hurt. Now, Rizzo was struggling. Rizzo was not hitting at all. We would have considered him almost WAR. He had a negative WAR. He was probably like a little step up of DJ LeMahieu. Not that bad offensively, but he was going to hit 215 for us. He would probably have 14 homers right now. Not worth the money. Okay, so no. Ben Rice wouldn't be here if Rizzo didn't break his arm. Okay. So you're talking about Rizzo, Soto, Judge, Wells, Torres, Verdugo, Volpe, Grisham, Cabrera. Each and every single one of those guys was on every single one of those guys played week one. Every single one of those players.
The biggest issue I have though with this offense is like the biggest issue is that there's no trade-off. What's the trade-off having guys that are constantly grounding into double plays and everything when they don't have any power? Like when they come up to the plate, they have to do something uncharacteristic, which you don't even want them to do. You're just like, get the bat on the ball and put it in the outfield. Like they're trying to go up there and swing for the fences when they can't. This is not your stereotypical Yankees, okay? Grisham is the only one. We've already had this conversation, but Grisham is the only one I really look at, after those first three guys in the lineup. Grisham's the only one I look at and was like, he could homer at any given time.
Oh my gosh. To your exact point, would you consider Anthony Volpe a power hitter? That
Absolutely
I just full stop question.
No.
Absolutely not. Is that your final answer?
Volpe's Rod Carew now. He only hits he slaps singles or come on, man.
Okay, so that's your final answer.
Yes.
And to which I'd probably agree with you. Anthony Volpe, to your point,
is not
in his last 30 games. He's I guess Rod Carew. He has 0 homers, okay? So he must be making this all worth it by hitting for a high average or putting the ball in play a lot, right?
God, I already know where this is going.
He's hitting 194. His on-base percentage, Jake. This is a player that you would say he doesn't need to hit homers, right? He's a guy that we had hitting leadoff. We need him on base so that he can steal bases. Let's move him down in the lineup so we can unlock that. Anthony Volpe's on base percentage is 237 his last 30 games. Okay.
Now,
so what is the trade-off
Volpe
there?
just had a good day. So we're not trying to rip Volpe today. Who
cares? He had a good day. Every player, if they play all the time, which Volpe plays every day, he never takes a day off, you're going to have a good day.
That's agree.
Going to happen.
That's part of our entire point is that eventually that's literally the entire point. Eventually, one of these guys has a good day. And if you just happen to have both Soto and Judge having a day where they have half of the team's hits and one of those guys comes through, you can actually find a way to win a game. But, I mean, that's the problem, is that they've gone from a team that can win in every which way because they get the bat on the ball and they put it in play. Putting it in play has to be the most overrated thing. I'm so tired of it.
It really does.
Bat to ball contact, all the... Miss me with all that. Okay. That skill set does not matter if you're hitting 80 miles an hour into the dirt. I don't care.
That's why you cared so much about Austin Wells.
Yes.
Austin Wells was a player who wasn't hitting at the top of the lineup, but the eye test said, I feel like I'm seeing something better than what the numbers are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, Jake, you said Austin Wells is hitting into a lot of bad luck. That's what brought us to the Baseball Savant page. And Baseball Savant agreed with you, Jake. It agreed with us. And it said Austin Wells should be hitting a little bit better. Definitely good enough to play over Trevino offensively. Yes. And so once you saw that, and your eye test told you that as well, but once I saw it, I'm on board. Okay, this guy hits the ball consistently hard. Defensively, he plays a pretty good catcher. He frames really well. He blocks very well. You can justify this guy starting every day, and long behold, he's one of our top 4 hitters. Should he be in the top 4 in the lineup? Right now he should be, but roster-wise, the Yankees need more talent. He should be in the 6 and 7 spot, and then you can start to justify this roster as being a championship team. But when you've got players who should be starters that are hitting leadoff and fourth, like Rice and Wells, those aren't leadoff and 4 hitters. Those are good players that should be in a different role. And so the Yankees right now, based on their personnel, they're forcing role players to fill roles that, frankly, they have no business filling.
It's time. I mean, you have to make a decision. I mean, kind of like what we alluded to. I mean, this is a team that is not getting early in the games. They're not taking leads. They're not coming through in the clutch, unless it's Judge or Soto. So the reality of it is this: are you okay being that team that just kind of stands pat and it's kind of like, yeah, they'll figure it out, and if they don't, like, oh well? Are you also that team that is willing to just blow it up and just sell at the deadline, realizing you're the New York Yankees and you're going to have torches and pitchforks in the Bronx? Or are you that team that is the New York Yankees, everything that, you know, we've known to love or at least tolerate when it comes to the Yankees? And are you a little bit open to having some fun, making some splash moves, and trying to alleviate the pain? Because I'll tell you right now, they've won 59 games. They've lost 42. It seems bad, but I'll say this. Seeing with Soto and Judge what they've been able to do and how they've really carried this offense, it goes to show you, if they were to get 2 players that we've talked about in Chisholm and Rosario, you know, we just talked about them in the last episode, if they were to get those 2 players, I mean, how much better would this team be? I would say they'd be astronomically better than what they currently are. I think they need 2 more hitters where, you know, guys that, you know, add some fear to the lineup, and you don't have this constant, oh, we're just going to pitch around Judge, we're just going to pitch around Soto. We'd rather walk Judge and Soto with the bases loaded, give up a run.
Chisholm's not chopping ground balls to second base for a month and a half in a row. Okay, he might get out, but the lows aren't going to be quite so low. Okay, bringing a Rosario in, you can say not just in the short term here, but what's he done long term to be able to justify a prediction that he's going to be an asset in the second half of the year? Right now, we haven't seen anything from Gleyber Torres, DJ LeMahieu, Anthony Volpe, Grisham that says we can expect something to happen in this given at bat. We just haven't seen that. From the names that you listed in Chisholm, right? And then obviously Scott, who potentially could be part of that package and giving us a closer. Yeah. The Yankees need people to be comparable. You need to go up there, and we need to have some level of expectation that you're even going to get a job done. Man on third base, less than 2 outs. I need to have an expectation, not a hope, an expectation that you're going to put the ball into the outfield to allow somebody to score. Okay. Is getting a hit with runners in scoring position great? Yeah, it's really good. We pay a lot of money to get people to do that. Okay. But if you're going to be on this roster, you need to bring something. There needs to be a benefit. And a few of those players on the trade market, they can provide a benefit. And you cannot look at the Yankees and say, it's just a 2-man group. Because if we had anything at all, and I said this at the beginning of the show, anything outside of Judge and Soto, this team suddenly overnight, you look really good. As bad as this lineup looks right now, Jake, we're 2 games back. Okay. Should we be 2 games back? I don't know. But should Baltimore have essentially not won a game in a 3-week stretch? Everyone was saying the sky was falling over there. Long story short here, Jake, the whole conclusion here, we are two incredibly flawed baseball teams. Baltimore is running out of starting pitching. They don't have a ton of depth in their bullpen. So what? The Yankees can pitch, okay? I know you couldn't tell today because it looked like Stroman gave up 13 runs when really he pitched pretty well.
We gave up 2.
He gave up 2 runs. Okay, so he was fine. We need to find ways to score the baseball that doesn't have anything to do with Aaron Judge and Juan Soto. If we can do anything outside of those two, Jake, I really do believe this. I do. I think the Yankees can be like it overnight, just looks like a night and day different roster just by adding a couple guys into this lineup.
I think so as well. It obviously depends on who you add, but I will say this. Someone who we're going to be having on our show, as you've mentioned before, Bob Nightingale, came out and said that the Yankees for the first time are willing to include number 1 prospect Spencer Jones in a trade for White Sox ace Garrett Crochet. Now, I don't want to skeet by the idea that pitching isn't an issue, because I do feel like there's definitely room to have a guy like Garrett Crochet, Tarek Skubal. I mean, we've talked about that before. But there is a player who, I mean, we talked about Rosario and Chisholm. Chisholm would cost a little bit more, would also probably have to be packaged with Tanner Scott, and maybe AJ Puck would help out the bullpen there. But there is a guy that I mentioned earlier today, and, I feel like people have a hard time with the idea, the Yankees giving up a lot for a closer.
Was it Brent Rooker?
It's Brent Rooker. He has become honestly, he's moved to the top of my list, to the point where I think he might be the most necessary, because again, I don't care where he plays. I don't care if he DHs over Stanton. The way he's hitting right now is absolutely insane. Okay. And the thing about him is that he really isn't somebody who I have to worry about just constantly grounding into double plays. He's hitting rockets. Okay.
He's got 22 homers, Jake.
He's got 22 homers. He's hitting 296. He's got a 955 OPS.
Oh my gosh.
If you injected him into this lineup with Judge and Soto, I mean, he's 29. Oh, get this, Gary. This is probably something you haven't heard, because no one ever wants to talk about years of control, which I actually like that conversation.
How many's he got?
Oh, he'd have 3 arbitration years. Wouldn't be a free agent until 2028.
So essentially what you're saying here, Jake, we're paying about $13 million, okay, for Alex Verdugo to man left field. $13 million, okay? That's the number.
Yeah.
Now, when Verdugo comes off the books, because he won't be back with the Yankees next year, I'm comfortable saying that now, but he won't be back. Brent Rooker, through arbitration, is going to cost about the same. So the Yankees would acquire Brent Rooker, okay, which financially would be about even to Alex Verdugo. Of course, you'd be giving up either Spencer Jones or Jason Dominguez, because this trade for Rooker more than likely is going to come in tandem with Mason Miller. That trade is going to be an unloading of prospects for any team who acquires them, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's Baltimore, because all those teams are going to be calling, okay? And apparently the Dodgers also going to be calling. So having said this, Brent Rooker is a player that you slot into left field for the New York Yankees. It is such an upgrade. I cannot emphasize this enough in itself. Not just the fact that the Yankees would be acquiring the best closer in Major League Baseball, who has not 1, 2, 3, or 4 years of control, Jake. He's got 5 years of control for Mason Miller. So
that's 8 total years with Rooker and Miller.
Insane value, okay? And the Yankees love value. But also, the Yankees also, I talked about what they love. They hate giving up their top guys, okay? They don't mind making trades. The Yankees make trades all the time. But do they go all in? Do they push all the chips to the center of the table? This trade would bring not just a comparable bat, like this isn't like a Palacios, okay, where you're like, well, he's a nice little fit. No, Brent Rooker, you would say, oh, I can see this guy hitting right behind Aaron Judge in the lineup. Like, you can
Yeah,
picture that. So that
absolutely.
is a major addition. Okay, this is not a guy on the wrong side of 30. That's a major addition to the offense. And you're getting a guy who can help replace Clay Holmes. When the Yankees get leads, it's not a foregone conclusion anymore that these are wins. With Mason Miller, they are. Okay? Baltimore, struggling bullpen. And here's another thing, Jake, and the last thing I'll say about this trade package, and this is an insane deal if the Yankees ever got it done. You're keeping these players away from Baltimore. If the Yankees are interested in Crochet or Skubal or Rooker and Miller, whatever trade you come up with, that's also an asset that doesn't go to Baltimore. Okay? We also have to keep these things in mind. We've done this over the years. We had Verlander. He was in talks with Houston, right? They wanted to make a trade. The Yankees could have made a trade, and we said no, right? We said no, and these other teams got better. So I love that package that you bring up. No one's really talking about that. I think in large part just because Miller's like kind of the big hanging fish. No one really knows what's going to happen with him.
Even if they can't get Miller, I think Rooker, you have to get 2 hitters, in my opinion, Gary.
Multiple.
And
yes.
And I think if you get one of those leadoff opportunities, whether it's Rosario at third or you get Chisholm who could play second, probably play some third, left field, center field, all of that. I mean, tell me the Yankees, and this is actually kind of the funny thing.
I like Rosario and Rooker, man.
I like Rosario and Rooker. I like Chisholm and Rooker. Say you get one of those, 2 of those 3, right? And tell me that isn't a wildly different lineup the day it happens. Because I'll tell you right now, if you come out of the deadline with now batting Ahmed Rosario or Jazz Chisholm lead off, then you have Soto, then you have Judge, then you have Rooker. Now all of a sudden Stanton coming back, he's the 5th hitter.
Now Wells
Ben
hitting
Rice,
6th. That starts to make a lot of sense.
It starts to look better.
Yes.
Now there's too much pressure on them. They have to come through because the 5 through 9 is ass. So
I love how you work through that whole conversation, just one point after the other, just constructive, and you're just like, you know what? Ass. Bad. Really bad.
I mean, I'm not wrong. So
you're not.
I just think you add a guy like Rooker, who I've been watching, kind of like Miller, because I was the first one on Mason Miller. I was like, that dude is something else.
Yeah, you put me on.
But Brent Rooker, he had 30 home runs in 2023. He hit 246, had an 817 OPS. This isn't just a one-year wonder. That's what gets me excited about him, is that it tells me that he's now translated, so the power and the average are starting to, become a marriage there. 296, 955 OPS. I mean, I wouldn't lead him off, but you could absolutely lead him off if you're like at that point.
That'd be fine. I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, he's got 22 bombs. I mean, we're talking, he's in Soto territory, So now you have 3 guys in the lineup that have 20 or more home runs. Stanton coming back, he had almost 20, I believe, or somewhat close to it. And then, I mean, Ben Rice, who, now all of a sudden there's a lot of power. There's a lot of game flipping ability where now you can't walk Judge. You can't walk Soto. We've seen that multiple times. If Rooker is in your lineup tomorrow, you're not walking Judge and Soto to get to Rooker. You're a fool.
No, not at all. That's not an option. But as of now, as it stands, it would be boneheaded to pitch those 2 guys. Yeah. Brent Rooker he holds his own enough to where you would never pick this battle. Okay. No. And that's what you want. You want enough of a talent. You're not going to have Juan Soto's and Aaron Judge hit 1 through 9. It's just not realistic. But what is realistic is that player good enough to where we won't attack that player? Okay. If someone's pitching around your best player and they're like, we want to pitch to that guy right there. Like, do you remember what happened with Castellanos this past World Series where he was just an automatic out the whole World Series? He couldn't hit. Christian Walker, right? Christian Walker. Okay. That was in the DS or CS. Yeah. In the championship series, he was an out. Okay. Christian Walker for the Arizona Diamondbacks having a great year this year. He gets to the World Series. Christian Walker was an automatic out. He couldn't hit He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, and teams tried to pick him apart. It goes to show you, when you do have a weakness in the lineup, whether it's like situationally or roster wise, they will pick your team apart. You have no chance to win. So Brent Rooker, to say, Jake, I mean, you brought up Rooker in itself, to say that's an upgrade for this Yankees team. I mean, we're talking about going from like wildly below average players leading off and hitting 6th and 7th in this team to good player. Like we added multiple good players. And if that happens, I don't have, like, honestly, if I'm Baltimore, I say now New York can be a problem. But as it stands today, we're not a problem for Baltimore. I still think Baltimore outruns us, no problem, unless you bring in names that can hold their own.
The thing I like about Rooker, decent athlete, and I'll just say this, and I remember hearing this, I don't know if it was John Madden who said this quote or it was Jeff Fisher. Somebody said this.
I hope it was John Madden.
It might have been John Madden. It might have been Jeff Fisher. I don't know. There was a time where, okay, it was probably Jeff Fisher. The Rams had like a ton of pass rushers, and I remember the media being like, well, how are you going to play them? And basically he said, like, that's not even like a worry, because it's like you can never have too many pass rushers. And the reason I say that is because people would be like, well, where are you playing Rooker in left field? Be like, you know what? If we could all just take a moment to try and do something a little different, who gives a rip where you're playing any of these guys? Put the best 9 hitters in the lineup. Defense, yes, I'm embracing the chaos, okay? Defense is so overrated in baseball. It's not even, I'm honestly of the belief that defense doesn't really even matter that much, because think about this.
Dominguez wasn't on the team because we said we didn't have anywhere to put him, by the way. You remember that?
And that's exactly, it leads you into that issue. I mean, what wins championships in baseball? Defense or hitting? Because I'll tell you right now, 2-1 games don't have to be 2-1 when you have the best damn lineup in baseball. Okay, we always talk about how the ALCS and all that becomes a 2-1 game. Why? It's because no one can hit, right? Well, if you get guys like Rooker and you have Judge and you have Soto and Stanton's hitting at the right time and, oh, Ben Rice is starting to come on, it's like you have all this power in your lineup, then you could be more aggressive. Then you could do more damage, and you can make the most out of your ABs. And so I guess that's kind of my issue, is we've literally sat here and just said, just giving it, oh, it's okay. Dude, it was like, what, 3 weeks ago, Verdugo was hitting 241, okay? Not 270 anymore. And we're sitting there like, but, he's a great defensive player. Well, now he's not even that great of a defensive player. He is falling off. And regardless, how much at the end of the day, since June 14th, which is actually, funny enough, the day that Alex Verdugo started to fall off a cliff and the day the Yankees started to fall off a cliff, since that day, how much has defense really mattered? How many wins have they stolen because of good defense? They've lost games because of bad defense, but the same bad defense came from 2 guys that you're saying are only out there because of their defense, in Volpe and Verdugo. So
it is so true.
So
that's the most true thing ever.
So I've just snapped. I think like just the evolution of the show, I think I've just snapped. I don't want to hear about defense. It's become the NBA for me. You know how I told you this off air like many times. There's no way, and it's not entirely true, because like with baseball, you can see if guys are good defensively. There's so many different things out there, whatever. Baseball savant. Basketball, there's not something like baseball savant, not on this level anyway. So people will just always, and I used to joke about this all the time to you, be like, yeah, but he's good at defense. Well, there's no way for you to go and like actually check if the guy's good at defense. So that normally ends up like working in the person's favor, because they can just slide that in there and be like, he shoots well, he's a good facilitator, and he's good at defense. Like always,
and he gets
just
steals, so they call him a good defender.
Exactly. So my thing here is that with baseball, okay, being good at defense should be considered a plus. It shouldn't be considered the why. And I think far too often we watch these totally average to below average guys who have no business wearing the uniform, being in the top 9 of, the roster, ahead of some guys that are in AAA, putting in the work, doing everything. And we see a lot of that. And I just think I'm at the point where, you know what? if you play good defense, that's a plus, but that can't be the why. That cannot be why I'm playing you. If you're not hitting at a decent clip, then you're not getting in my lineup. And so I think going out and getting Rooker and getting Chisholm and Rosario and whatever you do at the deadline, going out and getting good hitters for the lineup. Let's just start there. Just go out and get good. Get good hitters, right? So you go out and you get good hitters, and guess what? I don't have to listen to where are we going to play them. I don't care. I'll freaking put Brent Rooker behind the plate. I don't even care. Just find a way.
Isn't it crazy that they're just like trying to find the perfect fit, and they're like, well, wait a minute. If
it's
that guy's the perfect fit, he's going to cost us too much.
Catcher's the one where you need a good defensive catcher. But I mean, all jokes aside, though, Brent Rooker could play left field. You know what Brent Rooker is? For those of you out there that like Joey Gallo, he's the actual good version of Joey Gallo if he hit right-handed.
Oh yeah, you hated the Joey Gallo.
People were like, "Oh, Joey Gallo." Let me bring up Joey Gallo's stats because, like, why not? Because I mean, people used to obsess over him. I don't know why. I've never liked the guy, but
I really hope people stuck around this long in the podcast because the point you just brought up about who gives a damn where a guy plays is the most important takeaway on this show. It doesn't matter where the guy plays defensively. No. We are bad at second base defensively. Third base, we're bad, below average defensively. Left field, we're bad defensively. Okay, we've got Aaron Judge playing center field, to which like we would rather him being in the corners. But having said all of this, Trevino, when he was out there, was below average. He couldn't throw. We need hitters.
Yeah.
Spare me with where they can play. Can he play second base?
I don't care. I'll figure it out.
We don't care at all. Yeah.
And you know, this is probably something that maybe it took me a while to kind of realize. But I mean, I've been thinking it for a little bit. And you know, the thing with Gallo that I was bringing up, this is a guy with 25 bombs at the deadline when the Yankees acquired him. 55 RBIs. He was hitting 223. But he had an 869 OPS. So everyone was freaking out about the OPS. Like, no, he's actually not that bad. Well, Brent Rooker has 22 home runs. He's got 92 hits, right?
He's don't forget his batting average.
296, and he's got a 955 OPS. So Gallo's OPS was pretty solid, I'm not going to lie. But it's also incredibly overrated based on the fact like his home runs like really, you know, push that. So the point I'm making here is you go out, you have a chance to get Rooker for this lineup that only has 2 home run hitters right now. 2. I mean, Rooker has 22. I don't even care about his power. I care about his exit velo. I care about the fact he's hitting line drives and not ground balls. We have literally done a 180 to the point where, you know, having good contact used to matter, but now it's like, you know what? Exit velocity is not an overrated analytic. I'm actually starting to realize I'm becoming a huge fan of exit velocity because guess what? Rooker is in the 90th percentile in exit velocity. Where do you think Alex Verdugo is?
I'm going to take a guess.
He would be replacing Alex Verdugo.
I'm going to say he's probably in the blue. He's probably going to be 16th percentile.
38th, but still.
So he's below average.
He's below average.
The whole point you're making here, there are no players who you would consider to be bad players that have high exit velos.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist. There's no player in Major League Baseball who consistently hits the ball hard. They're in the red in that category. And it just always goes to a fielder. That happens for like a month. Okay? That happens for a month.
Yeah.
But over time, those numbers, they show themselves. You hit the ball consistently hard, you're going to be consistently rewarded. That happens. And so Brent Rooker, at least analytically, in terms of exit velocity, batting average, he's not just putting the ball in play, which everyone was so excited about. Let's get the Yankees to put more balls in play. That sounds like a good idea. But what types of balls are in play? Is it some weak, squeaky ground ball to second base that the second baseman just fields and snaps it sidearm over to the first baseman and it's a double play? Is that the type of contact we're getting? And as of now, LeMahieu and Verdugo are hitting fungo ground balls. They are just killing worms every day.
Killing worms.
Now we got LeMahieu essentially off the team. He's not going to play for a few days, in my opinion. But yeah, Verdugo, we're expecting to see Verdugo tomorrow. You know what I mean? So this is a major upgrade That's the whole conclusion here. We need more good players. What is it? Get good?
Yeah, just get good. I mean,
get gooder hitters.
Yeah, get better at doing your job. I don't know. No, I think really this is kind of a splashback, probably a delayed reaction from Jason Dominguez, because I was so angry isn't even the word. I predicted what happened. I said he's going to get hurt playing in a meaningless AAA game.
You did say that on the show. You said it here.
It happened, and I wanted to break stuff.
I'm sorry you had to watch what you said would happen. I'm sorry.
I mean, it really do be like that sometimes, you know. I'll say this. It was like already knowing how like the first time I was watching like the episode 3 of Star Wars, it's like I knew how it was going to end because we already know like it's a prequel, and it's like there's nothing I can do to change it. So it's just like I'm sitting there like I'm helpless. This is one of those everything goes to shit movies.
What was the movie that they came out with where they? Do you remember? It was like Lone something.
Lone.
Yeah, I remember it was where they were finding out how to blow up the Death Star.
Oh, Rogue One.
Rogue One. So when you watch Rogue One, Star Wars Rogue One,
you already know they're not.
The character development in that movie in particular was amazing. The characters were great. There was like a blind guy that you just loved. He was hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The characters were amazing. But if you knew anything about Star Wars, you knew these guys are going to die.
Yeah.
They're not going to make it.
No.
And having said that, you get to the end of the movie, you're like, oh, like you start to slowly but surely see, oh, these guys are getting gunned down. There's a huge explosion in the distance. Like you're used to seeing the protagonists get away. But when you know the ending, you can't set yourself up for disappointment. You kind of just have to really accept it from the beginning. And we really, we didn't do that.
Well,
you didn't do it. I mean, you predicted it, but we still didn't like really conceptualize the fact that Jason Dominguez, who's our number one prospect, is not going to touch the field till early September because Alex Verdugo, who's the worst offensive player in Major League Baseball, not just on our team, is blocking that player. That's actually exactly what happened. So, I
thought the analogy was on point.
It was a perfect analogy.
Yeah, it's just like you're watching Order 66 happen. You're like, there's nothing I could do. No, it's like they're all like, help. I'm like, I can't. You're in the TV, and I'm not with you. Like, I mean, I don't know why you're asking me for help. I'm the viewer.
Yeah. So, would you say it's because we're bringing John Morosi on as well? Would you say it's safe to ask him about Brent Rooker? Because I feel like that's gonna be the first thing I ask about. Hey, when are the Yankees gonna get good?
Yeah. Hey, John. When are the Yankees gonna get good?
I'm gonna say it just like that. He's gonna be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah. Be like, I don't know. And I mean, maybe we can stop with the Paredes stuff. I mean, the guy plays first base. He's not even really a third baseman. I know people. Again, I don't want to like crap on my point that I just made about defense not mattering, all that, but like, I didn't come away from this series thinking, yeah, Paredes is the guy that we're missing. I think if there's anybody from the Rays, it's got to be Rosario. The guy does not play every day. There's no way he wants to be on this team anymore. He's probably sitting there like, yeah, I made the mistake not going to the Yankees in the offseason. For those of you who don't know, he had a chance to go to the Yankees, chose the Rays because he didn't like the role that he was being asked to play for the Yankees. But he makes a lot of sense. I don't get the Lau talk at all. I really don't. I don't think he's that good. I've always kind of thought he was kind of overrated. But Arozarena, his bat is starting to kind of come alive. This might be the time to go out and get a guy like Arozarena. I'm not going to lie. I'm not saying I'd be all for him or whatever, but if they went out and got him, he's got some pop.
I think his numbers overall this season are kind of putrid, though. I think he's hitting like 210.
Yeah, no, he's starting to come on. Like they brought that up the last like 10 games or whatever. Like he's hitting over 300 or something, which is a good sign. But like,
dude, the last 10 games, Gleyber Torres is hitting over 300. So like, how much does that mean? You know what I mean? Like, no, it's good to have power.
That's
but like,
true.
Technically, over the next 10 to 15 games, Anthony Volpe can hit 290 for 10 games, and then, but who do you expect him to be 25 games
Well,
from
I
now?
think
Who do you expect him to be in October?
they couldn't, I mean, they definitely could use another like depth piece. So I'm not saying that he would absolutely take over and be the guy. And again, it would depend on how much you're giving up. Like the thing like with Lau is, I mean, he's a second baseman. So there is kind of a natural thing there where if like you want to move on from Glaber, he has an 811 OPS, he has 10 home runs, he's hitting 243. I just personally don't love the fit. I don't want to give up a ton of top prospects for Brendan Lau. You know, Brenton Rooker, on the other hand, I would do that for. Now, I think they need to find a way to try to make that Mason Miller and Brent Rooker. I don't think you can just leave Mason Miller on the chopping block there because he's probably going to go. You have to assume he's going to the Orioles. Okay. That's what you have to assume. So, you know,
I think Baltimore is going to end up with one of the starters, Skubal, and then I can't remember the other guy. Oh, Crochet. I think one of those two players is ending up in Baltimore. And if I'm the New York Yankees, if I keep Mason Miller and Brent Rooker away from Baltimore, you have to imagine that the Yankees have made up enough ground with Rooker and like maybe one other addition offensively. And then you add the best closer in baseball. You get Clay Holmes out of the closer's role and you just put him in the setup man role, right? Mid relief. Suddenly the Yankees, at least in my estimation, I think we're a better team than Baltimore. I really do. I don't think they lost Bautista. They don't have a closer. So the Yankees have to think in the 8th or 9th inning of a close game, who's got the advantage between these two teams? It's the Yankees. And so that's what the Yankees have to prepare themselves for. They need to have a good enough offense to keep themselves in the games so we can outpitch you. And that's the situation we're in right now. We outpitched people all the first half. And frankly, we kind of ran out of gas because our offense got so bad. Our offense was so bad that really anyone hitting any snag on the mound was an L. Okay. So that's where we're at. So I don't know, Jake. I think this Yankees team is highly salvageable. We'll see what they do with Brent Rooker. We've got about a week. We don't have much time.
I'm still on the Chisholm train as well. So guys, don't assume that just because I mentioned Rooker, I'm not in on Chisholm. I think you got to get two of those three guys, Chisholm, Rooker, and Rosario. Now, I know Rosario's never talked about, okay? I think he's going to be one of those, wow, I didn't hear anything about that. Came out of nowhere. I think don't be surprised because Yankees Unloaded is telling you right now, reminding you that there was interest in the past. There's no reason why there shouldn't be interest on both sides now. And if the Rays were already reportedly scouting the Yankees single A guys, just put the 2 and 2 together. I mean, it's not going to take much to get Rosario, who's a part-time player for them. So guy could start at third, be the third baseman the rest of the year. And I mean, maybe in a perfect world, Cabrera just now starts going off again.
Rosario's freaking Brooks Robinson in comparison to what we've got over there right now. It's a massive upgrade. It really just is.
Having a 300 leadoff hitter, what that would do to this team, the optics there, like actually giving a shit about batting average, being at the top of your lineup, and speed, athleticism, and versatility, a guy that can play all over, it would really feel like it all came full circle if they ended up trading for the guy that they wanted. Be like, they would actually be the ones that we can't hate on them because they'd be like, no, we wanted him so bad we traded for him against his will. So
no, we want this to work. So we want the Yankees to do what's right because we don't win if the Yankees are losing. That just is true. What it is. If the Yankees get deeper into the playoffs, our show's going to do much better. So we're rooting for this to work. We're not going to be delusional over it. I'm not going to tell you that this offense, we can just wait around. We can't. Okay. This team needs work. They need their general manager to be proactive. Is it Rooker? Is it Chisholm? Is it Palacios? All these different random names that you can throw out there into the hat. The additions need to be impactful enough for you to justify the Yankees having a chance in October against Baltimore, having a chance against Houston in a series. And as of now, I don't really think we have a ton of a chance, but our roster may look a lot different in a week. And so we're going to bring on some highly paid writers to see if they can give us some good news because we need it.
Yes, we do. In conclusion, it's an army of two right now. That's where we leave it. Yankees lost, but I think the bigger thing right now is who is going to be in this lineup aside from Soto and Judge, because the guys that they currently have aren't really cutting it. You know, I'm not saying to get rid of Ben Rice or anybody like that, but I'm saying they need a guy to be ahead of Ben Rice. They need a guy to be ahead of Glaber. They need a guy to be ahead of Verdugo. They need to have a better player who has a higher floor than what we're seeing right now. It's really that simple. If you get guys that have higher floors, then you're likely going to, as a whole, make your team level up and get better. And that's all we're trying to do, is just get good. So that's going to do it. Get gooder. That's going to do it for us. Really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. This has been episode 91 of Yankees Unloaded. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
And like this video.